Don't believe this, but you are working as designed. You probably don't believe this either, but your anxiety is not the result of a complicated series of interlocking unique problems. This is Recovery Monday, episode number 6, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's see if we get everybody in the door. Already got one person showing up. When you arrive, please let me know that you are here and that everything is working and that you can hear me. Say hello, tell me where you're from. We'll wait for the usual suspects to show up. A quick reminder for those of you who are kind of filing in, all of these episodes are right out of this book, The Anxious Truth. We're just going through it chapter by chapter, lesson by lesson, and we have still a bunch of things ahead of us. So we're in chapter 2 right now. This is going to take us all the way through to Christmas. So we have plenty of material to go over. And yeah, that's what we're doing today. Today, we're going to talk about the fact that you are actually working as designed, even though you don't think so, and that this is not some sort of unique problem for you. It's a little bit controversial. Sometimes people get offended by this, but that happens. Anywho, let's see where everybody's from. Let me close this little window here and then we'll get into it. Just a heads up here, I am quickly losing my voice. So I know I always say I'm going to make these short. I think today I have to make them short. I'm actually drinking tea with honey, believe it or not, because my throat is killing me. So let's see. I'm going to make you watch me drink tea. That's super exciting. So let's see who we have here. Bethany is here. I can't see you, by the way. If you are in the Facebook group, I can't see what your name is. I just see Facebook user. So I'm sorry about that. That is just the way Restream does it. Amberine is here. Laura's here. Adele is here from all the way from Scotland. Huge fan. DeLuca, what up, my friend? Andrew DeLuca here from Vegas. Andrew Vegas. Kathleen is here. Everybody's here. This is great. Glad to see it. All right, we got about 40 people here. Let's get into this. So this is chapter 2, lesson 2 in The Anxious Truth, and this is called You Are Working as Designed. One of the most common errors that I see people make when they approach their anxiety problem, and just about everybody makes this, at least from the start, is that you may view your anxiety problem, whether you're dealing with panic disorder or agoraphobia or whatever it happens to be, as the result of some sort of complicated, interlocking, complex, interwoven series of either of hidden or obvious, like unique situations and unique problems that all sort of pile up and they're unique to you and you're special and your problems are different and they somehow combine in some unique recipe to make your anxiety. And you begin to view your anxiety problem as either worse than other people's or special or unique in some way. And that really is a bit of an issue. We don't need to see it that way because in many instances, if we are dealing with things like panic disorder and agoraphobia, which is what I'm going to primarily address today, and yes, OCD and those sort of things will fit under this umbrella as well, but we have to try to let go of some of that. Like, you are not worse, you're not special, you're not unique. And I know when I say those words taken out of context, like if somebody took those 4 seconds of video, they'd be like, wow, this dude is a monster, right? I'm not saying that you as a person are not special, that you as a person are not unique. We're all special. We're all unique. We have different cultural backgrounds and economic backgrounds and faith backgrounds and all kinds of stuff, different life experiences. And it's great. It is wonderful that we are all unique and special. And we combine to make this really amazing thing called the human race. But in this situation, when we're dealing with addressing these type of disorders, we want there to be common ground that makes us not special, right? So in this, yes, Bella says, I'm not special. And yes, I'll explain that in a second. We want there to be common ground that makes us not special. You don't want to be special and unique in this problem, right? So some people hate when I say that because they want to cling to, different things for different people. And that's true. There are variations along the way. But if you are somehow resisting the idea that you can approach these disorders in the way I talk about, because your anxiety is somehow special, it's unique, you're special, you're unique, it can't be the same for everybody. We're all different. Or from a philosophical or spiritual level, it seems offensive for me to say that you are not special. I understand sometimes people get offended by that. So when I say there's some controversy, usually it's rooted in that. I'm not taking away your uniqueness as a human being. We're leveraging your non-uniqueness in the mechanisms of learning and cognition and fear and response. We're leveraging those wonderful commonalities that all human beings have to back us out of this problem. So many people get stuck in trying to untangle I probably shouldn't say untangle their anxiety because that belongs to two other guys, Josh and Dean, but it's true. Like there's probably a reason why they named their book that, right? Because in a lot of ways, you really may spend a lot of time trying to unravel what you think is this complex series of events that led to being agoraphobic or led to having panic disorder or triggered your OCD. And that becomes really frustrating and it becomes really difficult and you can't find it. And there always seems to be something different. Or you will say, well, this isn't working for me because I'm unique, I'm special, I need a special approach just for me. Or because you are afraid of one particular type of thought or one particular symptom that scares you more than anything else, you think you need a special way to approach that specially scary thought or symptom. But none of that is true. Like in this situation, we should embrace our commonality and the fact that we all learn things in very similar ways. And I'm not negating. I understand people will say I'm a visual learner. I'm this kind of type of learner. I'm talking about the mechanism by which we all learn to fear things and then learn to not fear things. Yes, there are variations in the way. Some people are more verbal, some people are more visual, but we are all experiential learners when it comes to developing fear. So in the book, in lesson 2.2 in The Anxious Truth, I give the example of I give three examples. Somebody who is maybe in an automobile accident may develop a fear of driving. Somebody who is bit by a dog may develop a fear of dogs, even though they previously loved dogs. A person who eats at a restaurant and then gets food poisoning or has a really bad stomach virus, maybe coincidentally after that, may refuse to eat at that restaurant again or won't want to eat that type of food again. And that's happened to all of us. We can all relate to that, right? Their background, their uniqueness as a human being doesn't necessarily enter into that, right? Because we all understand those. When I give you those three examples, you say, "Oh yeah, sure, I get that." Like you don't want to say like, "Well, my fear of driving is special or my fear of dogs is special because of my culture or my parenting or whatever it happens to be." We all understand those things, correct? The reason that is because human beings do not like to repeat unpleasant events. We're not wired for that. We're wired to try to avoid the repeat of an unpleasant event. We try to avoid what we perceive as danger or a threat. We are wired to go around those things, to go away from them, to stop them from happening. So in that context, and we talk about this all the time, yes, your life experiences are unique and always should be validated, sometimes celebrated, sometimes sympathized with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your approach to this needs to be rooted in your special uniqueness. All right. And somebody mentioned in one of the comments, I think it was Laura, that said, yeah, like it's nice to know in many instances that here Laura says it makes you feel not alone when your anxiety is not special, right? So if you are thinking that you are worse than everybody else, you're falling into this trap, and that's usually incorrect. If you're thinking that your anxiety is somehow special or different and therefore needs a special modification to this sort of stuff that we talk about, that's incorrect and you're falling into the trap. If you think that somehow or other this can't possibly work for you because of your unique experiences in life, you're falling into that trap and that's probably not correct. So that is kind of the first part of this chapter, is really kind of confronting that. And again, I cannot say, excuse me, often enough. I'm sorry, my throat is really burning right now. So I know I'm interrupting a bit, and the swallowing, it's not pleasant. But I think many people sometimes will look at that and feel like I'm invalidating their uniqueness as a human being, or I'm taking away their identity. Not true at all. Like we always have to always validate and honor people's experiences because they are true and they are real and they are valid and they matter to you. However, when you get down to the mechanics of getting back on your feet from these anxiety disorders, we like that commonality, that lack of uniqueness. We want to leverage those common functions that all humans share. It's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. So before I move on to the next part, which is why you're functioning as designed, even though you don't believe it, like I'll put this up on the screen. Adele asks, what if you can't pinpoint why you're anxious? That's actually okay. That's what I'm saying here. You don't have to pinpoint why you're anxious, because in the end, you are likely listening to this right now, not because you are anxious. A lot of people are anxious right now, but you are listening to this and watching these videos and maybe following the podcast because you are afraid of what it feels like when you are anxious. I need to make this go away. I don't like this. I have to stop it. I can't allow this. I can't handle this. I feel like I'm going to snap. So the problem isn't why you're anxious. I know many people will disagree with me. No, you got to find a root cause. But when you get to the point where the anxiety itself is the source of more anxiety, then it doesn't matter how you got there. And trying to figure it out tends to be really frustrating and often a dead end, because you may dig and dig and come to epiphany after epiphany and discover like the epiphany of last week that you thought cracked the case and you're good turns out not to be so much. 4 days later, when that sort of like wave of euphoria wears off and the panic hits or the GAD is back and, oh, that wasn't it. I'm back to square one. That wasn't it. I got to keep looking. So it's really difficult, right? It's really difficult. Sometimes there is an obvious reason. Life experiences. I'm having money problems. I had a fight with my boss, or, my girlfriend kicked me out of the house, or whatever. Like sometimes there are valid reasons and real reasons, external reasons that we could say, well, this is why I'm feeling this way, of course. But when you're struggling because you are anxious, just because you're anxious and you can't figure that out, you don't have to figure it out. So this is all about how we relate to that feeling and how we learn to our different reactions to it and build a new relationship with it. That's what we care about, not why it's there, because why it's there is quite often a dead end. So the second part of this chapter that I went over, lesson 2.2 in the anxious truth, it talks about really the chain of events. So how are you working as designed? The things you're feeling right now are normal, predictable. And we talked about this in some of the earlier Recovery Monday episodes. It's written in the earlier lessons in the book. You have a fear, you have something you fear, there's a stimulus of some kind. I'm going to grossly oversimplify it here, but whether it's a sensation or a thought or a context or a situation or a task, you fear that, your body has a reaction to that fear. Fear rises, your body reacts to it physically. You have thoughts about that fear. That is all normal. That is baked into all of us. So you are working as designed. There's nothing broken about you because you get anxious when you have to leave the house, or you have to drive to the supermarket, or you have to pick up your kids, or you might be left home alone, or you might be anxious all day long, driven by the fact that you feel the need to solve every problem in the known universe, really find them and then solve them, or be perfect, or always get it right, or never get it wrong, or be liked, or please everybody in the world. Like, you have normal reactions. Like when we have thoughts and sensations, or we encounter things that we are afraid of, that we perceive as danger, our bodies will react accordingly. These are all normal, measurable, predictable, common responses. So really and truly, that state of being anxious is a normal, as designed function for human beings and human bodies and human minds. We don't like them, and we begin to mistakenly interpret them as danger. But our problem really is that they are being triggered at inappropriate times. So this is really an application problem. So if you think about it, what this is a solution that is being misapplied. So nature has provided us with this built-in, baked-in solution that we have no say over, right? So we react to scary, threatening, dangerous things in a certain way. We all do react pretty much the same way. There are variances, but we generally have the same response. That is a solution to a problem, which is stay alive in the face of danger. In our case, we are learning to misapply that solution. So that is a solution applied in the wrong time. So a hammer is a really useful tool. That I don't have a hammer here, but I'll pretend. A hammer is a really useful tool that human beings invented, and we use it in a context when we have to drive a nail, or we have to remove a nail, or we just have to kind of persuade something with some brute force. It's a good time to use a hammer, which is a tool that we have developed. If we decided to just hit everything with a hammer, that wouldn't be the fault of the hammer. The hammer isn't broken. It's just being used in the wrong times, in the wrong situations, in the wrong contexts. And that's our problem. So we are working as designed, just at the wrong time. And we have to learn that that response itself is not dangerous, so that we can start to reset that mechanism and bring it back into its rightful place, where the solution is applied when it's really needed, when there are actual problems. So in a nutshell, that is, explaining the situation that you're in and what the recovery path kind of looks like. So that is why you're working as designed. Even though you hate it and you do not like it and you fear it and you think you are broken, lesson 1 in this whole series, Recovery Monday, and lesson 1 in the Anxious Truth book was, you're not broken and this is not your fault. So yeah, you are working as designed. This is not a unique problem to you. You are not special. You're not in need of some sort of special, custom tailored recovery program for nausea or dizziness or DPDR or whatever's scary to you. We'll take a second and acknowledge this. You may come from a traumatic or abusive background. That is real. That has an impact. There's no doubt about that, but it doesn't necessarily preclude your recovery. People will sometimes assert like, well, I can't do this. This doesn't apply to me because I have trauma. Well, that's true. You do have trauma, never going to invalidate that. And that has to be worked on as well. But we always have to be mindful of that situation where maybe that trauma has led to this situation over time. But then when the anxiety itself becomes the enemy, the response itself becomes the enemy. Now you had one problem, now you have two. But again, working as designed. Right? Emotions and memories bring up emotions. Emotions bring about reactions, and then we learn to interpret those reactions, those physical and mental reactions, as dangerous. So it all fits together. So everybody's experience is important. Your life experiences matter. They are valid. They're important. However, we really need to not lose sight of the sort of those common mechanics that we use to stand ourselves up on our feet here, get out of the fire and begin to work on maybe some of the bigger pictures. So if there is, maybe a history of relationship problems, or there's some trauma, or there's some abuse, or there are things that your life experiences have taught you that you are trying to get over and change. If you are trapped in your house because you're terrified of your own heartbeat, these commonalities of mechanics, right? The common responses, the non uniqueness, help us stand ourselves up on our feet first so that we can begin to work on all of the stuff. So if your life experiences are unique, which they certainly are, and they are leading to other problems that you feel you need to work on, that's great. You can work on those things, but we also have to work on these common threads also. So that is, in a nutshell, why I say you are working as designed. There you go. So 62 of you here still. Let's take another 5 minutes or so to answer any questions. If anybody has, I will scroll up here a little bit. Let's see. What do we have here? We had that. Oh, Gemma, what up? Hey, good to see you. What did Beth? I always like to put Bethany's comments up on the screen because they're always excellent. If it's common, that means there's an answer. That's how I felt. Relief. No more searching for the special key. Oh, I love this. I love this. That's true. If it is common, it means there is an answer. And the answer is, hey, Australia in the house. What up? Danny Jeans is here. So the answer to this, why are you here? Because it is way early in the morning in Australia. But anyway, but Bethany says if it's common, it means there's an answer. This is very true. It takes the mystery out of this. Why am I afraid to leave the house? Why am I afraid to wake up in the middle of the night? Why am I afraid to eat too much because it makes my heart race? All of those things. Then you don't have to solve every one of those problems. This becomes I just became afraid of my own thoughts and my own body, and you don't have to work on that. It takes the mystery out of it. It gives you a target to shoot for. Again, to stand yourself up, get yourself out of the burning fire so that maybe you can begin to work on other things if you need to. So thank you, Bethany. That's a really good point. And the cool thing about that is if it is common, then there is an answer. And the answer is to stop looking for the answer, which makes your life so much easier. But sometimes you have to abandon some very long standing beliefs about root causes or spirituality or whatever it is, energy and vibration, whatever it happens to be. I'm not trying to take those things away from you, but often to get to that very freeing, liberating place where the answer gets reduced to a very, very simple answer. And the answer is to stop looking for answers. Sometimes we have to put that stuff aside just for a while, or at least just in this context. So I'm not telling you to abandon the things you love and that resonate with you, but sometimes, just for a little while, we need to put them aside and say, that's not for me right now. I'll have to come back to healing energy later when I'm no longer afraid of my own heartbeat or my own breath. Okay. So there you go. Working my way through the Audible version of the book. Oh, good. I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Yes, the book is available in all the formats. I will put that up on the screen, places that you can go and get it. You can go watch this. Watch this. Ready? Boom. Pointed right away. You can get it right there on my website. I'm glad you're finding the Audible version of that useful. Definitely. So let's see. What does Gustavo has to say? So even with real problems, we need to learn. Yes. Thank you very much. Gustavo, this is a good comment too. Even with real problems, we need to learn how to relate to anxiety. Everybody has real problems. Like we all have real problems. Our life experiences and life circumstances are to a certain extent unique. So we all do have unique problems in life. That's true. But we still have to be able to not be afraid of our own response. Right. That's what we're talking about here. So Gustavo, thank you. That's a very good observation. I appreciate you putting that out there. He's trying to figure out the anxiety sources. Okay, here we go. Used to try and figure out the anxiety sources. Now I really just working floating like a raft and teaching the lizard brain. This experiential learning, which is one of those things that we all share. While This is interesting because I'm such a nerd for this stuff. So people will talk about learning styles. Well, there are visual learners and there are this type of learning. There are people who are more visual. There are people more auditory. There are people who are more written learners. And really, there's a fair amount of research out there that says that isn't necessarily a real thing. I'm not saying that everybody is the same, but one thing that we do share is that we do learn experientially, and we tend to learn our fears and our fear responses and unlearn and undo those responses experientially, which anybody who's here, all 60 of you or so that are here right now, can probably attest to this. All the books you've ever read, all the YouTube videos, all the live videos like this, all the podcasts you've ever done have not solved the problem for you until you start to do things and have experiences. So we rely on the commonality of experiential learning. Like we all tend to learn this sort of stuff most effectively through experiences doing. Super important, right? So let's see here. No, 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 no. Someone, oh, okay. Well, I appreciate this. We'll throw it up on the screen because this comes up all the time. 20 minutes, a couple more minutes. When I recovered, I lost friends and was just recently kicked out of an anxiety group and blocked by all the admins. Well, I'm not terribly amazing. So I appreciate those kind words, but the most important thing in this statement is some want to keep you stuck. So let's address that for just a second. I'm not going to pick on anybody in particular, but if you approach these disorders from the paradigm of like a life coach, which many do, which I don't understand how life coaching type things get applied to these particular very, very specific types of mental health problems that we're addressing here, which are often upside down from what conventional wisdom would tell us. So when people apply sort of life coaching techniques to these problems, then often they do have, I'm not going to say some sort of hidden evil agenda of keeping you stuck, but I have literally been told by other people who do this sort of for a living that one of the things that they try to do is move somebody into multiple products or services. So first you listen to my podcast or whatever, then this person will try to get you to start to buy their supplements or their programs or their courses. Then they can, if you start to get better, they can move you into their life coaching and they can move you into their, 10x your business. So it's kind of tough. So that can happen sometimes. That can. And a lot of times I'm not always going to say that it is, see, this kills me. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but how I would know it was Danny even without the name because of the love heart and the smiley face. So there you go. But that can happen sometimes. That's true. Let's keep scrolling down. I'll see if I can catch up here. Does anxiety, okay, I'll throw this up on the screen. This is somebody's going to ask this every single time. Does anxiety sensation come down as time passes or physical symptoms goes away on its own? What you're looking for here, and that's a reasonable question, especially if you're new to all this, we're never learning to make those sensations go away. None of what I ever wrote or talk about or anything like that is ever about that. It's never about, let me find a way to make the symptoms go away or stop them or make them stop happening. We are first learning a new way to react to them and experience them and move through them. We're learning a new way to relate to those sensations and the fear that comes with them. And when we are no longer afraid of them through that work, then the happy secondary effect is that they begin to lessen. So that's the short answer to that question. Yes, they do, but that's not the primary goal. So I'm never here to teach anybody how to prevent a panic attack, how to stop a panic attack, how to make it go away, or guarantee it never happens. I'm always here trying to teach us the most productive way to relate to those anxiety spikes, panic, sensations, scary thoughts, so that we are no longer afraid of them. The secondary effect of that is they begin to lessen over time. So there you go. Let's put this up on the screen. Jamie, what up? I have had people say to me that I've always been anxious and a worrier. Okay. It's definitely gone through divorce about 7 years ago. Does the fact that it got worse, what seemed to trigger it, not matter too much? Well, Jamie, that's a reasonable question. I appreciate you asking. I'm sorry I had to go through all that. That's crappy. But I think the answer to that is yes and no. Like in the beginning, I think when we get into really stressful life situations that cause us to change our habits, which is super common and not anybody's fault. That's not wrong. So when you are reacting to like a really stressful event like a divorce, which is certainly stressful, right, and life impacting, that often we begin to develop like coping and reaction habits to those things. This is my opinion, by the way, based on just seeing a very large number of people and having the privilege to interact with so many of you. that what seems to happen in those situations is the natural tendencies were always there, like you said, maybe always naturally anxious, maybe always naturally avoidant or anxious in your responses to things, but we begin to like kick that a little bit into high gear. So does the divorce matter? It does matter in your life, of course, and that's a event you'd have to process and kind of work through for sure, no doubt about that. But more than likely, if it amped up those avoidant responses, then it isn't really about the divorce. It's nice to understand that, like, oh, I was trying to cope with so much stress, and my, my fear level was through the roof, and so I kicked up my avoidance strategies. That's good to know, because then at least you can start to make the changes that we talk about, and it gives you some framework to work in. But in the end, I don't think once those avoidance strategies and escape mechanisms and safety behaviors are amped up to the next degree, well, you're just gonna have to deal with them regardless of what the trigger was. That makes sense. Okay. Um, Hopefully that helps answer the question. I'll do a couple more and then we're out of here. I'm sorry, I have to have a drink of my tea here. Sorry about that. That's a little rude, but I have to. Let's see. Scroll to the end here. Na, na, na. I used to fixate on my sensations. Oh, this is good. Thank you, Ambreen, for sharing this. It's a good response to do they go away? See, what Ambreen is saying is exactly what I said. She formed a new relationship with those sensations, and they went away, which is almost all of us that are in a recovered stage will tell you that's what it is. Um, so that's good. So let's see here. Oh, okay. This is good too. This is a good comment. We'll put it up. I was surprised that a positive change could also be a trigger. I guess it's also a stress, right? This is excellent. This is really an excellent. Well, first of all, it's not excellent that happened to you, of course, but it's an excellent bit of insight, and it can help all of us. Yes, like stress is not always just negative, especially for people who are already in the grips of an anxiety problem. Almost anything can be a trigger or an escalating event, almost anything, including positive things. So that's a really good comment. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. Our reaction to that will matter, will matter. So there you go. Is GAD different from an anxiety disorder? GAD is one of the anxiety disorders. I'll put up on the screen. I'll quickly address that. If you go to my website, theanxioustruth.com, and search for GAD, GAD, you will see a couple of podcast episodes that I did, one with Dave Carbonell, one that I did on my own called GAD Drivers and Strategies, that will explain the relationship. It is one of the anxiety disorders. It's a little bit different in the way you approach it, but the principles are pretty much the same. So I'll check that out. Bethany is offended by my tea drinking. And with that, I think our time here is done today. So I appreciate all you guys coming by and sticking with me while I sort of like scrape my voice through this. And hopefully it's been helpful. We will be back again next week. I will put it up on the screen. If you do not have a copy of The Anxious Truth and you want to get it, is I should just put it up on the desk. It is this book. That's what we're working out of here on all of these things. And you can get it here on my website. Just go to theanxioustruth.com/recovery guide and you will find it. If you have the book and you're digging it in whatever form and you want to help me out a little bit, you can always write a good review on Amazon if you kind of dig it. I don't think I'm supposed to ask you that by the rules, but I'm going to ask anyway. So anyway, that's what this is all about. I appreciate you guys coming by this week. We'll be back again next Monday for the next lesson. We got the better part of the next year to do these. So every Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. This will stay on my YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and like and all of that stuff. If you're watching on Facebook, or you're in the Facebook group, and I will post it on my Instagram also. So anywhere that you find me, you can go back and rewatch these Recovery Monday episodes. They will stay in all of these different places. So they never disappear. All right, peeps, thanks for the help, and thanks for your time and attention and great conversation and helping each other out. I appreciate it, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one. Wait, I'll see you on Friday.